Too many people in their coffee. What are you making today's video about? Let's see, the White House is coming after people who make videos on YouTube. We're not locking up pedophiles. And ICE is basically just kidnapping people in New Jersey.
Whatever. Socialism sounds great in theory, but it just goes against human nature.
Human nature is to be selfish and individualistic and only care about yourself and to want to get as much stuff as possible.
Have the people making those statements considered that perhaps they might be projecting? That might be your personal human nature, but what you do naturally, or even what you do as a result of societal conditioning, cannot be extrapolated and universalized to all of humanity. Not all 8 billion of us are just like you, John. The idea that human nature prevents humans from realizing more egalitarian ways of organizing society is goofy on so many levels, and yet it's such a prevalent argument that people keep bringing up constantly, even though it's ahistorical, unscientific, and denies the fact that the only reason humans are where we are today and not like living in caves is because of our tendency to cooperate and to use our big brains to build on top of the knowledge already uncovered by other members of our species. We survive through cooperation and depending on each other. We're also pretty powerful when working together and pretty useless when alone. Like, I think I can confidently say that you are watching this video on a device that you bought and not one that you mined the minerals for yourself, created blueprints and designs for from scratch, and then assembled with your own 2 hands and somehow generated the Wi-Fi signal for. You are dependent on this massive web of global cooperation just to watch this video because the idea of a fully independent, self-made, self-reliant human being is a fantasy. Anyway, this narrative that human nature is competitive, individualistic, and selfish, and that socialism is impossible because of it, is not a truism that reflects the true nature of reality. It's just a really convenient way of upholding the current status quo, which is why this myth still persists despite being wrong. And that's what this video will be talking about. We're going to talk about human nature, obviously, and why claiming that human nature is a particular way is not helpful. How this narrative
Yeah, I see. Man. 1 second, let me let the cat out. Come on out, George. She's right. She's right. At the end of the day, there's nothing that says humans should do A versus B. She's right. I think, and I've already outlined it in my book, but if humans were given a purpose, a divine purpose that they need to like cling on to, right? Because we seem to be lost without purpose. But if we were given some kind of divine purpose, then it would be to heal the mistakes the prior humans have already made. And boy, oh boy, would that create a lot of jobs. Yeah, I guess why I wanted to make this video in the context of where we are as a nation is because this nation is never going to get over its problems in terms of voting. And I'm talking about my immediate friend group, not just them, but the people I'm surrounded by. When you have the majority of the population white, with the fundamental inability to see their own behaviors with respect to non-white people, you do not have a democracy. You have a system of privileges versus non-privileges. And far smarter people have outlined this than I have. When this is indeed the case, we need to start, if we care about our own safety, we need to start making value-based judgments based on that. If you have a 400-year-old country who more or less does not have the ability to see what it's doing to non-whites, I think the easiest point-blank analogy that I can use is that we are living in a society of Agent Smiths. A person in the Matrix that can be activated at any point if the hardships are just right enough, simply for the sole purpose of performing their own flavor of racism. This is where our country is. It's got 400 years of this stuff, and it expects it's going to somehow get better, maintain status quo. It's not. It is going to take neither of those forms coming up. You are either going to have something that ate the prior dog come through. So, for instance, the current dog is the white dog of racism going yah, yah, yah to the people who aren't as privileged. Well, pretty soon, as we're seeing with the incorporation of Israel under our military, that this dog, this once superior white on brown dog, is now going to be replaced by a far more vicious and ethnocentric dog that says, well, your form of racism just isn't as powerful as mine, because mine eats kids. Mine feels like jihad is the right way. Mine is currently committing genocides. I mean, you're feeding us. Good boy. But we're doing it. And that's what this kind of more or less racist dog doesn't understand what's getting ready to eat it. The other avenue is that people think we're going to vote ourselves out of this, or that we're just going to come to some kind of commonality against evil together. Mythological thinking, to say the least. There will be no revolution. There will be only more oppression. No one's gonna want to work with you when they know in the immediate moment afterwards you intend to enslave them. That's just kind of how game theory works, if you want to keep using these fancy words like game theory. And rightfully so. When we look at the ways America is being deconstructed today, it is effectively being dismantled from the inside out. The reason that is that because this dog that is now coming for the old one is using the exact same tricks the old dog used to use. And of course, the old dog doesn't have the cognitive ability to see what it is going to be replaced by. Now, this dog right behind the Israeli dog, for all intents and purposes, let's just call that a robotic one. But notice how this dog eat dog behavior does not go away just because a new one comes in. 400 years of this stuff, guys. 400 years where this country has refused to accept how racist it is as it cries for progress. 400 years of people just hiding behind their own relative privileges, either saying that this is the way it has to go, and more or less just watching the victims that they are stomping on as they reap the rewards. This is the time to either, and people are like, I'll lawyer up, or whoever the fuck this other guy is who's like being attacked by the White House at this point. He's like, I'm gonna lawyer up. I was like, this country cannot get justice for some of the most grotesque crimes against women and girls I have ever heard of. That is the country I currently live in. The people who are crowded around the central idea, like the law is going to figure itself out here, are just as asleep as the people who wear white hoods. And it's actually alarming to me that, well, it's not alarming anymore, I'm just bored, that I'm essentially going to be I have a high likelihood of being killed by people that I predicted in college who are going to kill me. It's just stupid people. Just stupid people being stupid. And we've allowed it. And we don't understand how these problems are getting ready to affect our children. And at that point, I don't want to say I've given up, because no child deserves the brunt of what an adult's actions leads to. But at the end of the day, it's really hard to feel bad for anybody who is just more or less part of this racist system that refuses to look inward. So, take it for what it's worth, you know. I think at this point, I've already heard it from another YouTube channel that America has not suffered enough, and he's correct. And this was a white person making this statement. And he said point blank that in order for America to get over its problems, just like I've been saying, it's got to have the ability to point the mirror inward. No one's going to want to work with you. That's at work, that's in the political space, that's at a societal level. If you fundamentally view them as lesser than you. And just because you have formed so many cognitive blind spots to how you are treating them does not mean these behaviors are not bleeding out of who you are and what you're doing. You know, my heart goes out to this country because it really could solve its own problems if it just simply stopped
That human nature.
eating and bombing the kids that could solve its problems. But instead, it's so committed to this idea of utter savagery that it would rather do that. Because it believes in this inherent my skin color is greater than yours type shit. People don't see just how that's affected their ability to think. They don't see how this ability to think is now being permeated across entire generations of people. And as I've already argued in my book, the modern Western person walking the block is far less human when defined and compared to their historical ancestors, physically and mentally. This current thing that's more or less evolving into a roly-poly that sits on top of a robotic chair at the end of its life, more or less dependent on pills and what other people have to say to it in terms of how to fix itself. That is the apex predator of such a place of which I am describing. This 400-year-old ancient society that has refused to look in a mirror are these entitled white slugs dripping out of the sides of robotic chairs as they die. We don't seem to be bored of that as a culture. We don't seem to be bored of constantly deteriorating everyone else's mental health, physical health, and moral fiber. Actually, instead, I would argue we've built a core culture that farms that shit. So again, if these White House, or whatever clown show wants to continue to do the Lord's work here, by all means. You white racist honkies have about 400 years of what's coming to you.